and roll. Hey everybody, it's Petey from the Spin Rack, and we also have,
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
well, we got another rumor flying around that the time jumping backwards, back spinning and backwards, moonwalking John David Washington is being eyed for Kang. They needed to find somebody else. They're thinking about they've already moved on, and now this is the new person they put out for it. They put out a bunch of other rumors, and this is the new guy. And ultimately, since we had to replace Kang, and if they're lessening the role of Kang, then what's the point in putting him in it? It's like doing another
I,
roadie. What would be
I
the
could answer,
point?
but
Hmm?
I could answer. I said I could answer, but it wouldn't be a very flattering answer. So, moving right along.
Why would you put this guy in the thing? He's a big star, and you're saying, you know what, we're gonna move away from that and get to our secret war. So what do we have to do? Nothing with him? Like we just got a replacement and it turns into Rhodey in that situation where is he taller than is will Kang be shorter than Rhodey? That would be pretty sick. I'm sorry. Ultimately,
How tall is How tall is Don Cheadle?
well, he played mouse for size, so Don Cheadle. I know he's nowhere as tall as what's that dude? As Terrence Howard. Um, height.
What Denzel Washington's what 6 feet. Don Cheadle
Don
what
Cheadle's
like
5'8".
what?
Oh wow, he's 5'8". I wouldn't have thought it.
Yeah,
Did
George David Washington is
yes,
what
I
5'10".
don't, I don't think he's that. You're being generous, but I could be wrong. I was wrong in what I thought. Oh wow, five
Okay.
nine. That is that can't believe that. He is not no 5'9". Get the out of here. Well, they say he's 5'9". Well, much well he's taller than Brody. So there you go, buddy. I want to see them up against the toe to toe. See what happens. But
Oh,
um,
okay.
what? I need
Okay.
my superheroes and my supervillains to be way bigger than me. I don't want the black guys to be shorter than Captain America. I'm looking up the cap, and I couldn't tell, if Chadwick Boseman was tall, so it was kind of hard. I was like, oh, he's like looking at his face. He might be. Oh no, okay, good. Oh, thank God. Couldn't have T'Challa looking up at people. Like the saddest part, whereas I enjoyed so much. No, not so much, but when I watched a lot of the Lois and Clark, and when it first came out, I liked it for a while. And next, when we had Superman, he was shorter than some of these other characters, and it was like, ah, damn it, damn it, this would never happen to George Reeves or Christopher Reeve. This would never happen to them. So, just a superhero thing. Um, but if you're gonna use him, he's a big name. Had the pandemic hadn't happened, I think the kid in me says I would have. I don't think I would have enjoyed Tenet a lot more because of just so many weird stuff going on with the backwards fighting and being like, in some of the aspects of it. I think it was totally undercut because of it. But he was on the way to being, really big. So like you still have this guy that could be really big, and obviously the son of Denzel. Don't take the Kang part. You're gonna replace the Kang part. Don't do the. We now have to sideline Kang now that we've replaced him, which is saying he's the lowest person on the totem pole now. So basically, we kick him in the shins and he goes away, type of deal. No, you don't like him, cut Kang out altogether. What are you about to say?
Well, I don't know. I have no idea what they're doing at this point. I have no idea what they're doing. And then because they lost so much steam in the TV shows really took a lot away from Marvel because even now when I look back on it, it's like what was the end result? What was the end goal of these things other other than just set up for the film. And so, once it became apparent that guys were not going to get the type of reward from the TV shows that they had gotten from the films, people checked out. It affected the market. It affected the comic market. Like it, it, I'm stumbling over my own words because at one point you were making like money hand over fist, and then the next thing you know, like slows just really started to slow down because guys started unloading a whole bunch of stuff because they weren't seeing any return for their money because a lot of it was based on speculation, based on the shows, and the movies weren't taking off. There were no hits. There were no hits, and then of course you had these guys who were trolling. So I don't know what it is that they were trying to accomplish, what it was rather they were trying to accomplish with the TV series. But now like they must have a whole bunch of stuff. I would think just in terms of proper logistics for what you were planning to do with Kang, there's probably a
Hmm.
whole bunch of stuff that's already there that's usable, and then you're like, okay, we're going to put a hard stop to that, and we're going to go a different way. But that takes time, and there's no guarantee that that's going to execute any better than what you already have here. So you would think, okay, well, if we get a new actor in here, let's try to, at the very least, have salvage what we have here. And you would also think that the understanding is what we created or what we have on deck is not terrible, is at the very least serviceable, and we can improve this. So you would think, okay, the smart idea, recast, let's go forward with this. Maybe we hedge our bet and try to run dual tracks with Doom and so on and so forth. But I have no idea what these guys are doing. None whatsoever at this point. It's and these are I have never seen such a failing of ideas after sticking the landing with Endgame and with Endgame and Infinity War. I've never seen such a failure of I mean, I've heard about the sophomore jinx at the end of the day. We're like, hey, you came out, your first album was great, and the second one, it's like you were still trying to find yourself. Well, what do you call this? What do you call this? Just like a mess? I guess you call this the blip. You know, it's just really a mess at the end of the day. I have no idea what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So if they put this guy on as Kang, it makes sense if you're going to try to continue the storyline, at least the stuff that you know is serviceable, workable. But to put him in just so we can get him off stage, that doesn't make any sense. You can just do a blip. Like what happened to this guy? Oh, he fell in a hole. Oh, we'll never see him again. Look, Doctor Doom.
Well, that's the other thing to say to do this, and Marvel's known, which it seems like what they're doing with what's that thing? This Captain America movie, which is like let's utilize some of this other stuff. We got all the stuff for the Hulk movie. Um, we got all the stuff for the Hulk movie we want to do, and some Red Hulk stuff. Let's throw that in Captain America, and that'll give us some Hulk stuff, and we're gonna see if this Hulk thing will actually work and that sort of stuff. Which is ultimately, I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's everything that you said, and just remember that if you're gonna get rid of them, just move on. If you're gonna put a new actor in, get some buzz, and then sideline them and say, you know what, he did get his behind beat in the other movie. Like, no, he's supposed to be at the end of Ant-Man saying it didn't work out the way he planned it. They're like, oh, he's in trouble. So, um, hey, if you want to put it, well, the other problem is that you can put a nobody and he'd be good in it, and then you're like, I want more Kang. So, but how you write it and how you torch it and that sort of thing can be the way of making a mistake where this is an unfortunate event. It's unfortunate that Jonathan Majors is going through the stuff he's going through, but replacements happen, and ultimately they've been having this thing where they're just like, hey, what do we do when we have this? We have a death with a black person. We got to get rid of the character altogether. We're gonna memorialize the character. I think even Cat Williams, he had a joke. It's like the black T'Challa didn't die, an actor died. It's like it's like good lord, but it's like it's like the white actors. None of them died. No, none of the Superman. When they died, that the actor died, and Superman was still alive. Batman is still alive. So, this person just going through some stuff. So, and you're getting this big name, then you need to do stick with the big plans of Kang and show that this guy is worth the time to do instead of we killed him in Loki. he lose, or maybe he didn't lose in Ant-Man, but Ant-Man wasn't your success. But the problem was you knew Ant-Man wasn't the vehicle. You told us this was the vehicle. Not saying, hey, first one did okay, second one did okay, but it's like you didn't have enough to say, hey, we can introduce totally new characters. Doctor Strange had at least some X-Men stuff, but then at the same time, most recent Marvel movie had some X-Men stuff which didn't do well, and they're full, not torching their whole X-Men idea. So John Washington, hey, he's a big if he's not a big name yet, he's becoming that. So, and he's someone that people want to work with. Don't put him in the vehicle that you're trying to get rid of just to get the whole, what was it, the Yankees when they were just, or the Knicks, where we just put a name on there and we just want to put a name in there to get some buzz and put some seats in there, and then we're going to get rid of the character for the Beyonder. I don't want that. But anyway, I guess that's about it. Any other thoughts?
Well, the other thing that would come to mind is that John Washington does seem he's been on a good clip. He's been working with the right directors, getting the right type of projects. And why would you want to take a role that is so you can be ushered off? I couldn't see him. I just couldn't see him doing that. Uh, Especially if they're going to make him read for the role. Haha. But I just couldn't see that. Just makes very little sense to me. And I reiterate, just it's very hard. It's hard for me to even formulate the speech necessary because I have never seen such a failing of failure. Okay, on so many different levels after such a large amount of success in terms of the execution of a story. And you had an audience that was totally trusting in what was going to be produced from Marvel to the point now they're right at the same point where people didn't take comic book films seriously, didn't want to put any money into comic films because they thought it was silly and the audience would never buy it. And they're right back, and they're literally, for me, right back there where I don't know what to expect when I go into the theater. Very much like when we were watching films in the 90s with Marvel, and Marvel was bankrupt, so they were trying to get out of bankruptcy. So every character was good. It didn't matter if it was Spider-Man. It didn't matter if it was Spider-Man or Man Thing. Everybody was good. Make a movie, make some money, get us out of, do what we got to do to get out of bankruptcy. And that was it at the end of the day. And the quality was just not there. Okay, and some of these films got sequels, like Ghost Rider. Okay, and these were still not films. These were still not films. These were still not quality films. The cohesion wasn't there. And then they come back. They're like, no, let us do it. Let's bring all the films home. Let's put everything under one umbrella. Under one umbrella, so we have control over it. We can do it the same way we did the Marvel universe with the comics. We're gonna have a shared universe. We can have these guys come together. Classic comic book story. Let's do that. And I guess I'm really simplifying, the overall plan. Of course, there were some changes in it, but let's do that. And then to go from that to what you have over here, where you have shows where the hero doesn't even appear or is totally unrecognizable. You don't have any sort of backup or failsafe for such an issue like what happened with Jonathan Majors, which I just found to be totally out of bounds. I don't think we ever did a show on it, but I just found that to say, hey, anybody who thinks laws are not made to police men, look at Jonathan Majors. But then again, there's no failsafe. There's no, hey, you know what? We should always have a backup just like they did for Darren or Bewitched. Okay, because the show has to go on at the end of the day, and we don't want to be left rudderless because we lose the lead on the project that we're working on, and he's the focal point for this expansive thing that we're trying to do. And now look, what do you have? You have a multiverse that doesn't work. Okay, you had too many people who were able to indulge themselves on these television products and just do what they did. The cohesion, the interconnectivity that you had of your universe is no longer there. That blip thing was just a mistake from start to finish. But that should be great because anybody looking at it should say, "Oh, this is why in comics they return everything back to the way it started. Because if we just continue on, this becomes a problem. This becomes a problem where we say, "Oh, the 5 years still happen, and we're going to deal with the ramifications and the outcomes of it." Yeah, it's untenable. It's unwieldy. Oh man, oh man. Well, again, hopefully we just hope for the best and prepare for the worst. I expect, but to see such a failure on so many different levels, to see such egregiousness on the part of Marvel after they had such success is very sad.
Well, that brings up, the you saying, the way you're saying the untenable part of was, oh man, I had it, it's on the tip of my tongue now, but you know, I definitely hear you, and it feels like, but I guess go to my next thing to go along with what you're saying is to say that they put it on that, hey, the soup is getting too thin, and it's just like, well, not if you took Moon Knight instead of spending all this time to try to get the Egyptian mythology right and getting into some just basic, here's Moon Knight fighting a werewolf. Like, let's let's see if we can visualize the hit it storyline. Everything that made this thing a what it was for a moment in time, where you had all these other creators doing their stuff, and the peers are looking not there's Byrne on FF and Claremont on X-Men, and you had Walter Simonson on Thor, and you had stuff going on with the Hulk at the same time, and then you go over and you see Moon Knight, and Bill Sienkiewicz is taking leaps and bounds of doing all his stuff, and is saying, let's not try to get all the expressionistic, but just get these visuals of the fights that he's having and these cool looking villains that he's fighting, and just cut it down to, like I said, there was someone who was commenting and talking about episodic being in the past was just like watching what's that show? Oh, she didn't say this, but I would say Trapper John M.D., where basically here's an episode and here's another episode. And here's another episode, basically saying, or like Three's Company saying, they were complete stories. And the episodic nature of it was that you were going to get a complete story every week. Even though 1 week, Jack's sister comes in, and then next thing you know, the week after, Jack's only brother. People are like, huh? That sort of thing, or whatever it is. But the episodic nature is saying that you don't have to sit around getting tied into building up so you get to the second season. We had to do all this stuff, or else we wouldn't have got. We had to build on it. We had to introduce Jar Jar, or else, like just you had. I don't think they had the right TV people and the right energy in these books, and they took now that the stuff, as you said, the failing of what was going on. You had a ton of comic book material to use to touch on, and they're using them, even though it was a techie, or Tiki is saying he didn't read anything. Like his story things are a ton of comic book source material in there, but it's kind of taking all these stories and shove them into 2 movies, but go back to that stuff to do your storyline. Not saying, hey, how do we do Moon Knight? This guy's a white guy instead of an Egyptian guy, so we're going to make Stephen Grant an Egyptian guy, and then we're going to explain the whole mythology of that. And like, it's just a visual character. Taking the Batman character and going into different visual and action and swinging and fighting.
If that's the approach they took to it, it's so misguided because Khonshu, the Moon Knight, Khonshu, the Egyptian god, can choose anyone he wants as his avatar.
Mm-hmm.
He's not limited to anyone on the planet Earth. He can say, hey, I like this guy. Oh, well, he's not Egyptian. I don't care. He suits my needs.
Yes. That's the thing. When I think I was writing this story, and it was a character, it was a superhero that was, and initially he was going to be a reincarnation of someone else, and then I was like, no, if you go follow along with reincarnation, it doesn't stay in the same race. It means you go here, you go to animals, You go back, you start over, and you keep going, but it's a bouncing around effect. When you say, well, hey, you're resurrecting an Egyptian, he's got to be an Egyptian. Like, no, that's not how it works. You
No,
can,
the thought process is so skewed because they're trying to head off commentary,
hmm
you
yeah,
know, from a from from some vocal X people at the end of the day who are going to be like, see, this is terrible. Look at this. He's not Egyptian. He shouldn't be doing this. Like, no, he's not Egyptian. It doesn't matter if he's Egyptian. The Khonshu is the Egyptian god, and guess what? Khonshu is the Egyptian god. He's not Egyptian either. He's not Egyptian either at the end of the day. Oh, and by the way, if you think what is it? If you think Odin and those guys are actually gods, I got some news for you. In the movies, they're not. Those are just really, really high-powered aliens. So forget about all this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That's the criminal nature of it. Whereas when Marvel is like, even though sometimes they try to put Asgard on Earth, like the Asgardians saying the nine worlds, they mean the nine worlds. They're not factoring, hey, all this other stuff in the multiverse and that. The when they say nine, so to taking, they're just talking about what they need to talk about, not killing themselves. The same. How do we
No,
explain that when we have this other stuff in the multiverse? Like you don't. You just move on and have fun. You
no,
know.
you don't have it because these guys never read those. They didn't read those myths, so they don't understand that when they talk about the nine worlds, that's the Viking story of creation.
hmm
Okay, that's the Viking story of creation. So all of those worlds fit into their creation story at the end of the day. And who's the creator of the world? It's Odin, and it's Odin and his two brothers, and they make when they're talking about creation, they're not simply talking about the earth. They're talking about everything that could be visualized. The earth, okay, the stars, the universe, so much as they could see it, and then everything else that was an extension of the world that they lived in. The ice, the ice world, which is going to be Jotunheim, where we're at the land of the giants, and Muspelheim, the land of Surtur and the fire giants. All of that was located to their creation story, just as you would find that with other cultures. It wasn't like, okay, well, where's Earth 616 in all of this? No, no.
Yeah.
It's a very local. It's localized. It's very localized, and it shouldn't be too hard because if you look at their story as opposed to say the Greek creation story, you'll see some similarities. With the obvious one, of course, the planet Earth, the creation of the Earth and so on and so forth. You'll see some similarities, but then you'll see some really heavy differences because of the difference in locale and terrain, topography, all that stuff at the end of the day. So, but again, this was the complaint that I think I said on the other show. These guys get too much into it to the point like this is not real. There's no such place as Asgard. It's not real.
hmm Well, a friend was came up with that he was going to be doing what was it? He wanted to do a superhero series on the Maasai warriors, and I was like, oh my gosh, you gotta use. He said, like, start. You gotta use the Maasai creation of. He said, God created Maasai in His own image, and He gave him all the go. Like you should start with that. And he was like, oh yeah, like the create. Don't try to say I'm gonna now explain that origin in comparison to the rest of science. Like, no, just have fun with it. It's like don't kill yourself in trying to, like, hey, well, how does that work with what we know with science? It's like just no, just have fun, just have fun with the creation aspect. But anyway, there goes your rumors. We can get into some other rumors, but we need those Fantastic Four numbers on their own. Spinner rack.
We're out.